What if I told you that right now, at this very moment, the European Union, that same collection of arrogant bureaucrats who spent 6 straight weeks lecturing America about recklessness, who refused to lift a single finger to help us deal with Iran, who mocked President Trump and called him dangerous, they are now in a complete and total economic freefall. What if I told you that the EU is now requiring their own citizens to stop driving to work, that their jets are about to be grounded, that the IEA, the International Energy Agency, has officially warned that Europe has just 6 weeks of jet fuel remaining? And what if I told you that while all of this was happening, the United States Navy, quietly but forcefully, is sending a rather ominous message pointed directly at the people who refuse to help? This is not a movie. This is the world right now. And today we're going to break down exactly how Europe got here, what President Trump has been doing about it, and why the lesson Europe is learning is one they will never, ever forget. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, enjoying yet another glorious day in the Trumpian golden age that you made possible back in November of 2024. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the entire world in ways you never even imagined, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. All right, ever since Operation Epic Fury was launched and the Strait of Hormuz ended up closing, President Trump has been asking our European allies for help, not demanding, not threatening, simply asking, requesting. He called on all NATO member nations to work together to reopen the strait and restore global energy flows, while U.S. forces, in effect, strangle the Iranian regime both militarily and economically. It's something that literally benefits the entire planet. I mean, it literally benefits everyone, for the exception of China, of course. But that request was the definition of a win-win. How did our so-called European allies respond? They said, no, this is not our problem. This is not our war. In fact, they excoriated President Trump. They said he was being too aggressive, too reckless, too American. For 6 weeks, they intentionally sat on their hands while the United States and Israel did all the heavy lifting. For 6 weeks, they lectured us about diplomacy while doing absolutely nothing diplomatically themselves. For 6 weeks, they acted like the Strait of Hormuz had nothing to do with them. And now, as we speak, Europe is getting a massive wake-up call. As it turns out, Hormuz has quite a lot to do with Europe. The European Commission, the governing body of the entire EU, is now officially urging Europeans to work from home, not because of a pandemic, not because of some green initiative, but because they're running out of fuel. EU Energy Commissioner Dan Jorgensen sent a letter to every single national energy minister warning of a, quote, very serious situation with no end in sight. He told them to tell their citizens to drive less, use public transportation, reduce highway speeds, and avoid unnecessary trips. It's literally like something out of the 1970s oil crisis. And then there's the jet fuel. Back on April 16th, the IEA executive director sat down with the Associated Press and said that Europe has, quote, maybe 6 weeks of jet fuel left. 6 weeks. His own agency's oil market report confirmed that. If Europe could only replace half of its lost Middle East fuel volumes, stocks would hit a critical threshold by June, right at the start of peak summer travel season. The Airports Council International Europe wrote to the European Commission saying flight cancellations could begin as early as May this month if tankers don't start moving through the Strait of Hormuz. Here's the stunning statistic at the heart of all of this. 75% of Europe's net jet fuel imports were previously coming from the Middle East. I want that to hit you. 75%. They built their entire aviation economy on fuel flowing through a strait that they had zero military presence in and zero willingness to defend. And the truly sad part in all of this is that this smug refusal, this collective snub, is the predictable, inevitable consequence of decades of European free riding on American military power. But now, unfortunately for them, the bill has arrived, most particularly for the wacko socialist government in Spain. When Operation Epic Fury launched and American forces needed access to forward operating bases to execute the Iran campaign, the United States turned to two jointly operated bases in southern Spain, Rota and Morón. These are bases built under a 1953 agreement, bases that exist in part because the United States has subsidized Spain's security for over 70 years. Spain said no. In fact, their socialist president, Sanchez, claimed that this was an illegal war and it violated international law. Spain would not allow the bases to be used for anything not in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations. Within days, the U.S. had relocated 15 aircraft, including critical aerial refueling tankers, out of Rota Morón and over to Ramstein Air Base in Germany. And then Trump responded. Sitting in the Oval Office right next to German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, a man who, in fairness, has stepped up on Iran, Trump looked into the cameras and said this.
Everybody was enthusiastic about it, Germany, everybody, and Spain didn't do it. And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases, and that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it, but we don't have to. But they were unfriendly, and so I told him we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people, but they don't have great leadership. And as you know, they were the only country that in NATO would not agree to go up to 5%. I don't think they would have agreed to go up to anything. They wanted to keep it at 2%, and they don't pay the 2%. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain.
He then reportedly told Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent personally to cut off all dealings with Spain. That's not bluster. That's not a threat. That is the President of the United States telling a NATO ally in plain English what the new rules of this relationship look like. But if you thought that was bad, wait till you see what Trump did next. This is going to absolutely blow you away. But first, when the left talks about affordability, they never seem to mention how costly excessive Biden-era regulations have been to American families. So, for example, under Biden, between 400 and 800 new rules were forced on hardworking Americans each and every year. All these excessive rules and laws placed a heavy $1.8 trillion burden on the back of hardworking Americans. Now, thankfully, Trump is changing that. Last year, his administration cut more than 600 rules and regulations. The result was over $211 billion in net savings, or about $600 per American. And he's not done yet. Next month, the SEC is officially axing something called the pattern day trader rule. It's a relic of the establishment era that's long served as a barrier to entry for building wealth in the stock market. The rule forced people to keep $25,000 in their account if they wanted to day trade. But by removing this arbitrary threshold, the Trump administration is effectively democratizing the stock market, allowing everyday Americans to manage their own capital without being sidelined by wealthy elites. So, if you've ever wanted to build wealth using the stock market, now's the time to get started, which is why I'm so excited that Mark Wilburn of Neos Capital will be hosting a free 6-day online training called the Zero to Trading Bootcamp. It's from May 18th to the 23rd. Mark is a good friend of this channel, and he's been trading for nearly 20 years. His stock picks and trainings have helped our listeners not only beat the market, but in some cases 2 and 3x the market returns. The last time Mark hosted one of these events, we had so much positive feedback from our listeners that we asked if he would do another. People like Randy, who said, quote, "The Zero to Trading Boot Camp is an amazing program. Your financial life can be forever changed." So if you're wondering what you should do to position yourself to prosper in these turbulent times, then click the link below now or go to freeturleyticket.com to reserve your spot. Tickets are normally $97, but Mark's agreed to open up registration for free for all our listeners because he wants to support patriots like you. You're going to love it. Again, it starts on May 18th. Go to freeturleyticket.com right now to reserve your spot. You're going to love it. Now, here's where this story gets genuinely extraordinary. On Sunday, May 10th, a United States Navy Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine quietly surfaced and docked at Gibraltar. Now, let me explain to you why that's so significant. The movements of American nuclear-armed submarines are almost never disclosed. These boats are the most secretive platforms in the entire U.S. military. They're undetectable. They could stay underwater for months, and they carry Trident II ballistic missiles, each one capable of delivering multiple nuclear warheads with pinpoint accuracy from anywhere in the ocean. The Pentagon deliberately revealed this submarine's location. They issued a press release. They said it on purpose, loud and clear. And they delivered a very powerful and unmistakable message to Spain and Europe as a whole. Gibraltar sits at the entrance to the Mediterranean Sea. It's perched on the southern tip of Spain, the same Spain that just refused America's request to use its bases. It sits directly across the water from Morocco. It's one of the most strategically visible spots on Earth. So when the United States surfaces a nuclear submarine in Gibraltar the day after Trump rejects Iran's ceasefire counteroffer is totally unacceptable, calling it unbelievably weak, that's not a routine port visit. That's a message to Tehran, a message to Brussels, and yes, a very pointed message to Madrid. America does not need Spain's bases. America has submarines underneath the waters all over the world. And Trump's disgust wasn't limited to Spain. Just days ago, Trump posted that none of his European allies understood anything unless they have pressure placed upon them. And he was right. They didn't understand until their jet fuel started running out, until commuters couldn't afford to drive to work, until the crisis they ignored became impossible to ignore. Then just a few days ago, something almost comedic happened. After 6 weeks of doing nothing, after refusing every request, after snubbing Trump at every turn, NATO called. They asked if they could help. 6 weeks later, they showed up a day late and $1 short. And Trump merely laughed. He responded by dismissing their cowardice, calling them useless and pathetic, a paper tiger. Then just 3 days ago, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who's on his way out as perhaps the single most unpopular prime minister in all of Europe, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, who's possibly the second most unpopular prime minister, and French President Emmanuel Macron, who comes in third in unpopularity. They all gathered in Paris for an emergency summit on establishing a European naval force to secure shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. So now they want a naval force. Now they want to help secure the strait. Now, after the United States has done all the work, taken all the risks, paid all the costs, again, as Trump put it, sorry guys, too little, too late. He made it clear he does not need their help anymore, nor does he want it. The work is all just about done. And he's not going to let them swoop in at the last minute and pretend that they were partners all along. Here's the bottom line. Europe is suffering right now because of a crisis that American strength is in the process of solving. Their energy supplies are choked off. Their flights are at risk. Their economies are contracting. And who's fixing it? Not Brussels, that's for sure. Not NATO. Certainly not the United Nations. Who's fixing it? The United States. The United States under one President Donald J. Trump. We're the ones who launched the campaign. We're the ones applying the pressure. We're the ones with a nuclear submarine parked at the entrance to the Mediterranean, sending a message that no press release could ever deliver. In fact, Europe's biggest concern right now as we speak is being completely sidelined in the Trump-G summit. They literally are the definition of those who time has passed over. Trump is going to get a deal done with both Beijing and Tehran. And when that happens, Europe benefits, as they always do. Their flights resume, their economy stabilize, their fuel flows again. But this time, it's going to be done only on American terms. And those terms involve Trump increasingly turning his back on Europe. The days of taking America for granted are over. The days of expecting American protection while contributing nothing are finished. The lesson Europe is learning right now, in empty fuel depots and grounded jets and emergency energy summits, is the lesson Trump has been trying to teach them for years. America is the indispensable nation. America is the one that solves the problems. America is the one the whole world turns to when things get serious. And there's a nuclear submarine parked at Gibraltar, just in case anyone forgot. Gang, things are moving fast, and the best decision you can make is to stay connected. Scan the QR code right now and sign up for the Patriot Alert newsletter so you can get the updates, insights, and alerts you need to stay one step ahead.